This is my top 10 favourite boxers of all time. Not necessarily the best, just my favourite fighters. And the only criteria is that they have to have fought at least once since 2000, 2001, which was the year that I started watching boxing as a teenager. Doing it in order was actually pretty tough, and it does probably change day to day. But here goes. Number 10, Ricky Hatton. So when I started watching boxing in, like I said, 2000, 2001, he was on the up and up. And he was from Manchester, or more specifically, southern Greater Manchester. And even more specifically than that, he was from about 5 miles away from where I grew up. So he was an icon, a great fighter, and by all accounts, from people who knew him, a lovely bloke. So rest in peace. Number 9, Tyson Fury. He was the connoisseur's choice in the mid-2010s against a matchroom casual hype machine. And as a personality, I actually prefer AJ these days, funnily enough. But back then, before maybe the fame went to his head, Fury was the man. And under Peter Fury, his uncle, he was a genuine handful for anyone. And, as a little side note, I trained on and off at the same gym as him in Manchester, Jimmy Egan's, for maybe a year or two overlap. Years and years before he was famous, so a little bit of a claim to fame. Number 8, Manny Pacquiao. Where to start with him? Phenomenal. And I just wish that the Floyd fight had happened straight after the Pacquiao-Hatton fight, because back then at that point, 2009, it would have been huge. I think Floyd would almost certainly still have won in hindsight, but man, I would have been rooting so hard for Manny to not just win, but to knock him out. Maybe that's not possible. But in his prime, suspicions about certain things aside, he was just so exciting to watch and was just blowing people away and setting records seemingly every 6 months. Number 7, Vitali Klitschko, the Terminator. Man, his brother did go on to have a more conventionally good, all-time great career, but Vitali was the better of the two of them, and Vladimir admits it. And anyone who watched Vitali against Lennox Lewis and his early 2000s run, they know what I'm talking about. Massive, awkward, literally never been down in his whole career. He barely lost a round. Tough as nails. He's up there in a head-to-head against anyone because he's so big and so good. Number 6, Usyk. This guy needs no introduction. A truly unique individual who is more comfortable in his own skin than pretty much any boxer I've ever seen. There's not an ounce of self-esteem issues or ego issues, you know what I mean? But it is easy to be silly and self-effacing when in actuality you're a modern day legend, right? An icon for a nation and one of the most remarkable fighters of the past 30 years, bar none. All of his opponents talk about him in awe, apart from a certain sore loser. And the combination of Olympic gold, 4-belt undisputed cruiserweight championship, and a 2-time undisputed heavyweight champion, despite not being a natural heavyweight, all combine into a phenomenal career. What a guy. Number 5, Froch, the Warrior. He wasn't the most talented, but he squeezed every last drop of skill that he did have out of himself and relied on the one physical gift that he absolutely did have, which is a chin like few others and powers of resilience and recovery like no other. He was a workhorse who logged every single training session for his whole career into dedicated notebooks. A consummate professional. And his 2 fights of George Groves are my generation's Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank, the dads. His fight with Jermaine Taylor tells you everything you need to know about him. He's a fighter who truly did fight to the final bell, and a very funny YouTuber now as well. So, is there anything he can't do? Number 4, David Haye. The Haymaker carried British boxing through a lean period just before a Mr. Eddie Hearn teamed up with a certain Mr. Froch and then a certain Mr. Joshua came in to reshape the sport in the country, driving it from a niche interest back onto the front pages. But in his day, Haye was electrifying, and he remains arguably Vladimir Klitschko's best win. His unique style combined cat-like speed and reflexes with insane right-hand power to unify the cruiserweight division before stepping up and making his mark at heavyweight against Nikolai Valuev, the heaviest and tallest heavyweight champion of all time, I believe. He said what he thought. He promoted himself from early doors, and with Adam Booth, he blazed a trail for how to maximise your money and impact in a sport that chews up and spits out so many others. Injuries cut his prime short by a few years, and he suffered from a lack of other superstars around him when he was truly at his best. If only he'd come around 5 or 10 years later, right? Can you imagine? Number 3, Mike Tyson. He transcended boxing to become one of the most famous or infamous people of all time. Him and I think Michael Jackson are my earliest memories of what a superstar, a real celebrity really was. A genuine phenomenon and a truly enigmatic personality. And that's before we even talk about his boxing, right? He was a one-off genetic freak, a 5'10", maybe even 5'9", ball of fast twitch muscle combined with venom, spite and ego. You couldn't take your eyes off him in or out of the ring, and 16-year-old me was actually cheering him on against Lennox, despite Lennox being British, and who I also think is the best heavyweight ever. But Lennox was never really one of my favourites, and Tyson holds a very special place in my heart. Number 2, Roy Jones, Superman. He did things that no one else has done before or since. Like Pacquiao, there were rumours, and actually even a failed test, which does maybe take a bit of shine off some of his achievements. But he was so talented, the sport sort of gives him a pass. And it's easy to see why, because him beating John Ruiz for the heavyweight title in 2003, I think, remains one of the most intriguing and exciting things I've ever seen in boxing. Winning belts from middleweight to super middleweight to light heavyweight, undisputed, skipping cruiserweight and going straight up to heavyweight is a remarkable achievement. Video game stuff. And he did it all in style. Can't be touched. And now, number 1, Prince Naseem. He is the most popular answer for every British fight fan and fighter for a reason. Just watch his highlights, watch the knockouts, watch the ring entrances, watch the interviews. He was a complete package of entertainment and genuine one-off skill and showmanship, with knockout power at featherweight unlike anything we've seen before or since. His fight with Barrera is a lesson in many things, but for me, it doesn't actually take away everything he did in the previous 35 fights. That's simply unfair, because he is, without doubt, the most entertaining boxer to ever live, and it is as simple as that. Now, there's some honourable mentions. Nigel Benn. I loved him from watching videos, but he retired in 97 or 96, so he can't go in. Second honourable mention is Golovkin. It was between him and Ricky Hatton, and I had to go with my gut, so Ricky went in. Some other honourable mentions are Miguel Cotto, Tony Bellew, Anthony Joshua, and for his personality alone, Dave Allen. Like I said, not the best, but my favourites.